Science fiction has always been my absolute favorite genre, and what better way to enjoy it than the most immersive way possible, video games. And as a PC gamer, I of course go to Steam for all of my games. With so many games available on their platform, there's bound to be a lot of sci-fi entries to find and enjoy. However, not every game on Steam is going to be great. In fact, some of them are really bad. But that's something I'm actually counting on, because when it comes to science fiction, I actually enjoy the bad stuff just as much as the good stuff. But it's much easier to say that when I'm talking about a book, movie, or TV show. With video games, we're not just sitting down and watching a story play out on the screen or flipping through pages of a book. We actually take control of the characters in the game and live out the stories ourselves. So on top of the writing, voice acting, and the art and animations, there's also the code that makes up the game itself. And messing up a line of code can be a little bit more detrimental than messing up a line of dialogue. They can be anything from minor bugs to completely game-breaking problems. Plus, not every game on Steam is a legitimate attempt. There are a good number of games out there that are just scams. The primary difference between a real game and a scam, of course, is just how much effort was actually put into the game to avoid these issues. And that's something that's not always easy to tell. So understandably, not everyone is willing to take the risk to potentially wasting their time and money trying to find a hidden gem. Fortunately, that's where I come in. Since I've always had an easy time enjoying bad sci-fi, I have no problem digging around Steam's massive library looking for these games. Because not only do I want to see if these bad sci-fi games can in fact still be fun to play, I also want to see what exactly made these games bad in the first place. Hi, I'm Krowso, and in this video, we'll be looking at Redemption, Saints and Sinners. Redemption is made by a Russian game developer called Black Lime Studio. They were founded in 2014 and released a total of 8 games as well as a few DLCs from 2015 to 2019. There's been no activity from them since 2019, but their website is still up, and all of their games and DLC go for about 99 cents. Now there's nothing wrong with putting out games for super cheap. It's possible to find quality games for low prices, but given the sheer number of games and DLC that Black Lime Studio has released in such a short period of time, it's a bit questionable. In fact, it's possible that we may be looking at an asset flipping game developer. But even if they were, they do appear to show some level of success with their games, with only one game receiving a mostly negative rating, and all their other games have been mixed or mostly positive. And their best game has 820 reviews with a 75% rating. So if they are asset flippers, then at the very least, it does look like they might be doing something right with these games to make up for it. Redemption, at the time of recording this video, sits at 52% with 282 reviews, and was released in 2016 and has no DLC. The store page description doesn't really provide a lot of info on the game, and as we'll soon find out when we start the game, it's also pretty misleading. Squad of professional soldiers was sent to scout distant space station. After the accident, that space station were evacuated long ago and all the exits were blocked with power shields, but the incoming signal from there made the commander concerned. Squad's ship were fired upon and the survivors woke up at the station. And then the highlights for the game: solve puzzles and discover space station, try to survive against aggressive monsters, use the most powerful weapons, feel yourself in the role of a space marine. I can never bring myself to hate bad English translations, they add so much character, and when it comes to bad sci-fi from other countries, in my opinion, it actually makes it more interesting. But so far this doesn't sound too bad, it seems pretty straightforward. That said, I don't know what discover the space station is supposed to mean since the whole game takes place on the space station, and according to the description, we already knew about it beforehand. And the bullet point about feeling yourself in the role of a space marine, I'm pretty sure that's just referring to our point of view, and nothing else because our point of view is from the inside of our helmet. Aside from that, everything else on this list appears to be normal. Powerful weapons, monsters, and puzzle solving. Sounds like a good time, right? Kinda sorta. Let's take a look at the game so you can see for yourself. Oh, okay, so we're just thrown straight into the game. No story setup or anything. So we're immediately off to a good start with no opening cutscene, and it quickly becomes obvious why. There's no story. Well, there kinda is. The description on the store page is pretty much it. Aside from that, there's no dialogue and there's no lore drops in any fashion. No data pads or anything like that that could possibly give us some hints as to what's going on in the space station. And there's only one cutscene in the entire game and it's at the end. This is what I meant when I said the game description was a bit misleading. It implies that there is a story, but in reality, there is nothing beyond the description itself. Also, the description implies that there were survivors plural after our ship was shot down. But that's also not true, because we don't come across a single friendly NPC in this entire game. Remote control. Oh, okay. I thought I was waiting for this to do something, but it looks like it's just repeating. I can just immediately start clicking on stuff. Find pairs for blocks. Okay, so I have to match them. So 9966. Okay, pretty simple enough. Yeah, very simple indeed, and this is pretty much what all the puzzles are like. Now this is fortunately not the only type of puzzle we'll come across, but they're all very simplistic in nature. They don't really require a lot of brain power to solve. All you really need is a good memory. This red box is something we'll be seeing a lot of. It's only highlighted like this a few times, otherwise it can be very hard to spot. This was something that frustrated me a lot, because a lot of the times when I was stuck, it was because this was tucked away somewhere that would take some time to notice. Due to the repetitive nature of this game, it gets really frustrating very quickly. Did that scare you too? Yeah, that got me real good. Okay, so... Oh, they can still hurt me. It's not truly paused. Holy, that scared the hell out of me. Now let's go ahead and take a moment to break down how the combat segments work, because minus the scaring me part, it's pretty much the same formula every single time. First thing that happens is the section lockdown. It's not really noticeable here, but it will be in future combat sections. Basically, all doors are locked and all force fields are reactivated, even if you had just unlocked them. On top of that, any interactable devices are rendered inoperable. So things like puzzles, keypads, and computers and so on are not going to be usable when enemies are attacking. Next, we hear the monster roar that signifies the attack, and they start appearing from thin air. Most of the time it happens in open rooms like this, but there are a few times when things get pretty tight. One thing that we'll never have to worry about, however, is ammo, because there will always be ammo drops nearby and they respawn shortly after being picked up. Once all the enemies in the area have been defeated, everything goes back to normal and we can proceed forward. Oh, this is interesting. Not particularly challenging, but that was interesting. This one's not really a puzzle, just a bit of platforming. It's kind of annoying, however, because we can't jump, which I feel like would help speed the whole thing up. Instead, we have to wait for the platforms to line up in a way that we can just run across to the next one. Fortunately, we don't see these as often as everything else. What the heck? I was on it. Yeah, there's no jumping whatsoever. Oh, come on. Okay, I don't know what's going on, but there's like this weird floaty effect going on that's causing me to fall off. Oh my god. Oh, thank God. Is there a way to like save? No. So I'm guessing I'm relying on checkpoints. So I really hope I don't die and get sent back before this. This is another puzzle we'll come across in the game, and it's probably the one that requires the least amount of brain power. The only thing I don't like about this one is the use of arrows for the buttons instead of the clockwise and counterclockwise symbols. I know that sounds a bit nitpicky, but every time I come across this one, I forget which direction each button controls. This particular one only had one node, but there are others that had multiple nodes that you have to connect the beam to. Now at this point, we pretty much have the entire formula for the gameplay explained. We basically have to solve a bunch of simple puzzles to navigate through the level while occasionally fighting monsters. The first level doesn't have a lot of the monster fighting part, but all the other levels definitely will. Unfortunately, the later levels will also have a lot more puzzle solving to go through. Too much, in fact. It gets to the point that you are solving 3 to 4 puzzles in the same room just to get to the next room, where, big surprise, you need to solve more puzzles. And while there's a variety of puzzles in the game, it's not really enough to offset the total number that you need to solve to make a difference. Looking at Black Lime Studios' other releases, it does seem like their MO is mostly puzzles. And that's fine. If a game developer has a preferred genre, that's fine. And if they want to try to combine that genre with other genres, that's also fine. But you have to find a balance between them. If you don't, you get something like this game, where it quickly stops being fun and simply becomes a chore to solve the puzzles. Speaking of puzzles, we do actually come across one more puzzle in this level. It only occurs once in this level, but we'll be seeing it a lot more in the future levels. With this one, we have to select a bunch of nodes in the correct sequence in order to solve it. Aside from that, it doesn't really do much to set itself apart from the tile matching puzzle. It's just another memory game and not a very fun one. And on top of that, this one tends to bug out sometimes, preventing me from interacting with the nodes, so I have to leave the puzzle and then re-enter it in order to actually solve it. Unfortunately, we'll be seeing this one more often than any other puzzle in this game, making it my least favorite one. Now you're probably wondering, if there's no story, is there even a point to this? Is there a satisfying conclusion? While I can't say it's satisfying, there is definitely a conclusion. And even though it's never actually explained, there is a goal too. It's to escape the space station. The majority of the levels have a goal as well. We have to collect 6 of these pieces to unlock a final puzzle that's at the end of each level that has them. Solving that final puzzle allows us to get to the next one. There are 7 levels total, and levels 5 and 7 are the only ones without this final puzzle. However, before we can even work on the puzzle, we do have to deal with one last round of combat. But it's nothing special, so it doesn't take any longer than normal to clear them out. I can't tell whether or not the damage or the accuracy is what's super inconsistent. It could be both for all I know. Like, it seems like one moment I can take them down in one hit and I'm good to go. Other times it's like it takes a full mag just to take down these enemies. Like, I'm already down to 7 ammo. I started this game with like 80 or something. Like, if it wasn't for the fact that ammo drops I've previously picked up replenish themselves, I'd probably be screwed or something, because I have to consider myself very lucky that that happens. I don't know if that was designed to be that way or if it was just a glitch, but I count myself lucky that this game gives me ammo consistently, as opposed to another sci-fi game I played where you lose the ammo you even fired after you respawn. So I guess I can give this game that. The final puzzle of each level is basically an image split into 6 pieces that are jumbled. We have to reassemble the image to unlock the exit. And no, there's no purpose behind the images. They don't represent anything related to the game or theoretical story or anything like that. They're just a bunch of random images that are probably from some asset packs. And on top of that, we don't even get to appreciate the image because it disappears as soon as the last 2 pieces fall into place. And that's pretty much all there is to this game, and there's not really much point for me to walk you through all the levels because it's all pretty much the same. But there are a number of different things that do happen throughout the game, so I do want to highlight those parts. Starting with level 2, the first thing we are introduced to is some fire hazards. They're deactivated by interacting with a valve, computer, or by shooting a red box. We also run into this deadly obstacle, but it's not a repeat like some of the other things we see here, and only makes one other appearance aside from this level. The best thing that happens though is that we get a new gun, an assault rifle with 90 rounds including what's loaded in the gun. And fortunately it's not going to be one of those situations where the ammo will be more scarce just because it's a better gun. It's just as easy to find ammo for it as it is to find ammo for the pistol. Upon picking up the gun, a horde of monsters will attack us, and we'll get to see a new monster variant in this level, a lizard man. If you feel like this variant came out of left field, trust me, I'm right there with you. And the variants we'll see later don't get much better. It definitely feels like they just bought a bunch of random monster models to put into this game. We're also introduced to this orb mechanic, where you take this orb and drop it on this platform to activate something. In this case, it's another rotating laser puzzle. In level 3, we're introduced to mazes where we have to navigate the glowing orbs to their platforms. Oh, a new puzzle. That's nice. Oh, I see it. There we go. That's a nice little different puzzle. It's so far been repetitive, but that's something new. On top of that, we'll have to navigate them ourselves in order to access panels as well as puzzle pieces. And in some cases, they might even have hatches to rooms beneath them. We will also have to fight monsters in these mazes. And yes, we will be trapped in the mazes until we clear out all the enemies. Oh, this is not the place to be. It makes the combat a little more challenging, but it's still doable. We also get a new enemy variant, and I honestly could not tell you what it is or whether or not it fits in this game setting. We also have these laser beams that are meant to block our path until we interact with whatever controls them, but their lethality is not very consistent. Most of the time they are completely lethal, other times not so much. And later on in the game I'll be able to show you how I use that to my advantage. The only new thing I came across in level 4 was a new weapon, the shotgun. I also experienced my first bug with this game. I was locked out of a puzzle simply because I did it in a different order than what was expected. And this didn't really make much sense because the order here should not have mattered. I was just supposed to use a laser to open 2 different doors to access some computers. The symbols they used for the direction controls are really dumb. They don't make sense and they don't really help indicate like which way this thing's going to turn, and I always get confused. So I think this makes it go that way, so it would be shorter to make it rotate this way. Like it should be this should be clockwise, or maybe counterclockwise, and then this should be clockwise. I mean, based on the direction this is making it turn, then this should definitely be clockwise. But I feel like counter then clockwise would make more sense. All right, now that's powered. What did that do? It probably did something over here. Oh, it raised that platform. Okay. So I can now go down here. Or did it lower the platform? I'm not quite sure what that did. Oh, I see. What I don't see is how I'm supposed to... Oh, there's a... No. Shoot, did I f this up? Why would this not be interactable again, but this one can be? I may have messed up. I was probably meant to point it towards this one first. But because this is no longer interactable, I can't fix that. Fortunately, I could reload the checkpoint to start over, but this is where I came across another bug where I randomly fell through the map. It wasn't something I could replicate at will, and fortunately it only occurred one other time during my playthrough. Still kind of funny though. What? What just happened? What the hell just happened? I just fell through the floor. Aside from that, the only other interesting thing that happened during this level was when I had this random thought at the time, so I figured I'd include it in this video. This is such a weird puzzle. Like it feels so out of place for a space station. Like I have to keep reminding myself that this is a game where we're on a space station that we're supposed to be investigating. There's been no story or dialogue or anything to do with that in this entire game. All we've ever had to go on for the story was the game description page. So I have to keep reminding myself that that's what I'm supposed to be doing, is investigating the space station that is somehow big enough to have these gigantic puzzles used to navigate around the facility. Like it's just, it hurts my brain to think about it. It also means that at no point that whoever put this facility together and was spray painting these numbers on these platforms, that at no point they were just like, why are we doing this? This seems so pointless. Like what is the purpose of this? Now level 5 had a little twist to it, and it led me to believe that this was the final level. Unfortunately, this was not the case. The twist was that there was no final puzzle to get to the exit. We just had to get to the end of the level. This level is also where I learned that I could take advantage of laser blockades during combat. Oh, I can sneak past that. Oh. And this is not the only time I'll be able to do this. It's not perfect. There have been a few times where monsters get through, but it still makes combat less annoying. We also have a new mechanic. We have these red barriers that can only be taken down using explosive boxes. There are two different types of explosive boxes, ones that can be shot and ones with a button that you have to press to activate it. Oh my god, that actually kind of threw me a little bit outside of the room. Also, we have a new enemy. It looks to be some kind of cyborg with a sword. It did seem like they hit harder than the other enemies, so I did my best to keep them from getting too close to me during combat. In level 6, we go back to collecting the chips again. It was really weird for them to switch back and forth with this mechanic, and my only theory as to why they did this was that the 5th level was originally supposed to be the final level. But then I guess they just decided to add 2 more levels and just never bothered to add puzzle pieces into the 5th level. We also get one last new enemy, and this one fits in the least compared to all the other monsters in the game. It's literally just a fantasy style orc. Aside from that, it's just more of the same, solving a lot of puzzles and occasionally fighting some enemies. And finally, the last level. We don't have any new stuff. Weapons, enemies, puzzles, nothing new. There's also no final puzzle, so it's basically like level 5, except for how it ends. Instead of our typical exit, we have a spaceship, and activating the computer next to it triggers the one and only cutscene in this game. I'm not sure what the timer in this corner is for. I thought something interesting would happen after it hit a certain time, but after sitting here watching it for 5 minutes with nothing ever happening, I just went back to the main menu. So I'm not really sure what the point of that timer was. So that's Redemption, Saints and Sinners. It was at the very least a stable game for the most part. Aside from the few bugs that I did highlight in the video, I didn't really come across anything else. When it comes to the combat, while mostly uninteresting, it was at least mostly balanced. The enemies weren't incredibly overpowered and hard to take down, but at the same time they weren't a bunch of pushovers. Plus, we never had to worry about running out of ammo during combat, because there would always be some drops nearby. The only issue I had with the combat was just how simple it was. While it may have been relatively balanced for what it was, there wasn't much diversity with the enemies aside from their appearance. They were all melee enemies. No one had any ranged combat mechanics, so as long as you kept moving, it was easy to avoid the enemies. Honestly, I would say its biggest flaw was its super repetitive gameplay, because that's something that wouldn't have changed even if the game had a story. And in my opinion, the main cause for this is the priority that's placed on puzzle solving over combat. This game wasn't really an FPS game with puzzles in it. It was more of a puzzle game with FPS action in it. If you're going to do something like that and put a huge focus on puzzle solving, then the puzzles need to be very unique. Having a handful of small puzzles repeated over and over again gets boring very quickly, to the point that it feels like a chore. And the lack of a story is a pretty big flaw too. Not to mention a very dishonest one, because the store page description does imply that there is a story. But we don't get anything like that. Not even some lazy lore drops on the computers or some data pads that just explains what happened on the station. We don't get anything. So with all that said, my final verdict on this game is that yes, despite its issues and its mixed rating, I still think it's kind of fun to play. I wouldn't say it's worth going out of your way to purchase it for yourself, but if it does happen to find its way into your library, I'd say give it a shot. It was a good way to kill 5 hours. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure to hit the like button. Also consider leaving a comment below to let me know what you think. And if you want to stay up to date on new stuff as it comes out, be sure to subscribe to the channel and check out my other socials. I also do a lot of streaming on Twitch where I play a little bit of everything, not just sci-fi stuff. So if that's something you're interested in, be sure to check out my Twitch channel. Until then, thanks for watching and I'll see you guys next time.